whole series.
So you live in Jericho.
I live in Underhill.
Oh, you live in Underhill.
Yeah.
But the show is in Jericho.
Yes, at the Emile Groupie Gallery on Barbara
Emile
Farm.
Groupie Gallery?
Yep, which is a really wonderful community gallery.
Do they have an opening reception?
They will.
They will?
Yeah, and it will be listed in the paper so that you can keep your eyes open for that.
We frequently have those here in Burlington. I enjoy going to the receptions. I studied the history of art at the Sorbonne in Paris one year, and I remember we had discussions there about the painted paintings like Picasso and Rembrandt, and how photography would affect that. And some people feel that the impetus for abstract art is that the realistic art, for instance, like Rembrandt has done, it can be done so much better with photography. So since photography replaces the realistic depiction of a scene, the basic role for painting now is in the abstract sense, like more what Picasso did, perhaps. But in that respect, photography would be to capture a scene, and the artistic talent would be in recognizing a worthy scene to photograph. But yours is a little bit different. You actually create the scene.
I do. I think what you're referring to is photographers that are more in the area of street photography or landscape photography or even portrait photography, where you're working with a subject that already exists. And it's dependent on your eye, your viewpoint. It takes a lot of skill and talent to make a very good photograph in those areas as well. What I'm more interested in is creating narratives from my imagination or my experience, or I've worked a lot with fairy tales and myths, where I gather objects and I construct them together. I put them together and make tabletop constructions with the elements that represent the different components of my thought or my experience or my concept, and then I photograph them. And I use natural light, which is very significant and important in my work because the light and the shadow is an element within the work as well as the color. I work in color, not black and white, and that's very important as well, the significance of the colors in the work. I know I did a lot of reading about Kandinsky, the painter, the abstract painter. You mentioned abstract painting. And I follow along his way of thinking when it comes to color. He talks about color having vibrations within a person's soul, and that different colors have different levels of vibration and resonance within a person. And he took his colors very seriously in how he put them together and what they meant, what they represented. And I agree with his way of thinking about color and use it in, I try to use it in that same manner. So the color is very significant in my work.
And his name is Kaczynski?
Kandinsky, Wassily Kandinsky. He was a Russian abstract painter.
How do you spell that last name?
Kandinsky, I believe. I don't think it's an I. It may be an I at the end.
This is the first I've heard of him, but
okay.
That's very interesting. I'll have to check him out some more.
Yes.
The painting that we have here, your award-winning photograph, there's a narrative that goes with that?
Yes. I'm really interested, one of the other themes that runs across my work is gender issues and how women and men grow up to have the identity as a woman or a man, and the social cues and the social structures that are in place that reinforce and enforce that identity. So I work a lot with the female figure and different elements related to the feminine and the domestic. And in this picture you see a cutout from a probably 1940s pattern, sewing pattern. It was the package cover. And I cut that out and positioned it along with a hand mirror and the Ouija board, which was part of the theme, the parameter for the fair. But for me, I remember as a child, one of the big things that we would use a Ouija board was to predict the names of our future husbands. So to me, this whole idea of growing up as a little girl, that was your dream, who you would marry, what your house would look like, what your children would look like. That was really an acceptable and an encouraged way to think about your future. So to me, this also represents that, not just the game board, but the whole idea of what the Ouija board was used for as a child. So I try to go into those sort of areas too in my work.
And your husband's first name is?
Bruce.
Bruce.
Right.
And what did the Ouija board say all those years ago?
I don't believe it was Bruce.
No?
I think the Ouija board was wrong. That's a good question.
I've practiced years ago with a Ouija board, and it seemed to me that anyone could just move the thing around.
Right. Right. Yep. So there's also that in my work, this whole idea of reality and unreality and wishful thinking. I have other work, one that does deal with that idea of magical thinking to create the fantasy life that we think we want.
So you don't really believe that anyone can get useful information from a Ouija board?
I don't know. I haven't tried it lately.
You're not sure about it?
I'm going to say I'm not going to commit on that one. But it wasn't right when it predicted my husband's name, I can tell you that.
Well, that was many years ago, so maybe a new Ouija board would be better at predicting children's names. Do you have children?
I do not.
No?
No.
You said you were interested in gender issues. You've been married now how long?
7 years.
7 years. Your marriage, is it the traditional style, or for instance, does your husband help with the dishes or cleaning the house?
Well, you know, that's a really interesting question, because I think that there's this idea that if you are a feminist or interested in gender issues, that you tend to be more radical in all areas of your relationships with men and women. And I don't necessarily think that that's my experience or the experience of people that I know. I think it's an image within the greater society that may not be that realistic, because I think that most people do a whole lot of all kinds of things, traditional and non-traditional. And my work just is to draw people's attention to those influences and those forces around us that dictate gender. And I suppose I could equally do work that, from a feminist perspective, that says that women should never type. I remember Gloria Steinem saying a whole generation of women should refuse to learn to type. And I suppose I could do work about that whole issue too, because it's really more, my work is really more about the social pressures that determine our identity. And so I could equally look at the feminist pressures that try to tell us what a feminist looks like. And I haven't done that. I've been more interested in the other idea of what society has said women should do in the more traditional ways. But it's still the same idea, that we're being told who we are, what we are, and how we should behave based on this other idea, an idea outside of ourselves.
But society says that women should, or at least traditionally, has said that women should stay home and have children, and that the man should be the breadwinner. But you contribute financially since you sell your photography. So do you and your husband share equally the financial burden?
Well, women are still traditionally underpaid. I think women still make less money on a dollar than a man would. So in order for a woman to contribute economically equally, I think that that doesn't always happen, because women typically are underpaid.
But now that people are going to recognize the value of your photography, you're likely to end up making more money than your husband.
I don't think he would mind.
You won't object?
No.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So on the subject of the value of art, you actually sell your...
I do.
Where do you sell them?
Mostly at the shows that I have.
At the shows.
And through my website. You can contact me through my website.
And what's the average price?
It really depends. $300, $500 range.
$300 to $500. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of our viewers will be interested, and they can buy an award-winning photograph.
Well, thank you. I hope so.
And in the area of gender issues, have you read all the Feminine Mystique, and you've read all of that?
I don't know that I've read all of them, but I have done quite a bit of reading around the issues.
We have an organization here in Burlington, Northern New England Planned Parenthood. I've been a contributor of theirs. They do a lot of good work.
They do.
You support them also, I believe.
I do.
Yes.
I do. I try to support all the organizations that support women's ability to have equality in our culture.
Mm-hmm.